WarsawJS.
So, hello, my name is Kostya, and I would like to tell you about some testing. I have like more than 5 years of experience in working with Node.js, and usually don't have time for testing. Usually you have like legacy code, you have lots of problems, and let me show you. So I will tell you about my problems, and it was some kind of fintech startup. So it was really legacy, and it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. It was just JavaScript, no TypeScript. There was lots of type issues. There was lots of issues in general. And yeah, it was startup. We was working on some African market. So it's kind of okay to have the bugs there, but still, we want to test it. Still we want to have some coverage. And we had, as I said, 2 microservices. One was written on Node.js. Another was serverless application on Lambda. And we needed to set up tests for that microservice on Node.js from scratch, because it was like not that much important. There was no financial stuff, like no communication with banks. It was just related to some user stuff, and some very crucial information was in another microservice. But still, if you are not able to register or if you are not able to make a transfer, then this application is useless for you. So we needed to have some tests. And also, it was like a task to have 40% coverage of tests, because, I don't know, just somebody decided that number, and we had like 2 weeks, something like this. And the main point is to create end-to-end tests, because we wanted to test like how our application really behaves, not how some function behaves, because again, we don't have that much time. So what we needed also to do is to simulate real user flow. Like in front end, we have like test cafe to click something, and in backend we usually have QA engineers that make automation tests using maybe Python. But for that team, for that project, there was no QAs, so just we. And a few more words. It's about stress test. So we had some Lambda function, and this Lambda function was like linear in terms of its argument. So more bigger argument, more time we have on that function, more time it takes to work. And we needed to play with batch size. We needed to understand the number and then make chunks. So we don't want to guess, and we wanted to use our test to stress test somehow it and to take a look how it behaves. So yeah, that is. And basic idea, it's what you will always see. It's about testing pyramid. It's how tests should look like. So you start from unit tests. You start from testing your small functions in the application, and then you go higher and higher. So unit tests, they're supposed to test, I don't know, every function that you have. And with lots of unit tests, you will have very good test coverage, and you will be not afraid to do something. Then you have integration tests, where you can mock something, but it's like, you should not mock, but you still can mock, and you should test how your models speak with each other. And at the end of this pyramid, we have end-to-end tests. And these tests are supposed to test how application works in general. And for me, it's better not to mock anything in end-to-end tests. Maybe to have some environment, some additional environment for database, for all of your services, for all of your microservices if you communicate with something, but not to mock. But again, we work in startup, and we don't have really time for unit tests, because if we start from it, it will take like a year or half a year to achieve good test coverage. Integration tests, they are good, but we are afraid if we change something, for example, the user won't be able to even register. So we need end-to-end tests to check if user will be able to register using our like API application, because front end used. And again, here are some problems. We had bugs in major endpoints. As I said, that's the stuff we need to cover from the beginning. And also we had some idea of architecture in that another microservice based on Lambda. So it was kind of good idea to stick to the same architecture in the whole ecosystem. So Yeah. And we decided to start from end-to-end tests. We decided to forget about all of those unit tests. I think there was a few for some crucial function, for some tricky function, but in general, we started from end-to-end tests. We started from calling API. And also we decided to combine things somehow. So basically, usually we'll see like a single test, a single API test. For example, you work somehow with the database, you populate it, then you just check that register route works, maybe get user route works, and that's all. But we decided to reuse that flow, and I will show it later. So it was really nice to have to configure those tests. It was really nice, as I said. We needed to stress test something, so it was really nice to like make kind of framework that will take some number and will create entities based on that number, and that won't be so shitty entities. Also, they should be fast, because I had experience when we had like 10 integration tests that was supposed to run like 10 minutes, and it's not that good. You are afraid of it, and you don't want to run it. You just like run it before production, before releasing the version. And also, it should be understandable, should be just good. So let's take a look. Let's take a look how it may be. It is somehow it's simple backend application, and we have like, I don't know, we have few entities. We have, oh, sorry, thank you. Is it good? Yep, thank you. So for here we have order, we have user, and we have item. So user can buy something, user have money, and user can create item. I don't know, it's like some kind of shop. User have money, so he can spend it on order, and that way we create order. And so let me show you how we can test it basically. Let's start from user. And here will be some test for user controller. And as you see, we don't really have that much of tests. We don't really have here like it or something. We don't have that much of it statements. We have just calls from some function. So let's take a look. Here's an example of filet test. And yeah, second, let's take a look at how it works with a successful test. So we have create user, and we have some builders for user. I think here will usually you just write those stuff manually. You just create some random string and you call it, for example, test, and that's all. But that don't really covers like a lot of stuff, because maybe you have some problem with validation. Maybe you have another problem, and it's just bad code. So we have library in Node.js. It's called Faker, and it creates random names. They are meaningful. As well, it creates random email, and maybe with some small chance, you will see that for this email, for this valid email, your validation fails, and then you will update your validation. As well, we have just money. It's just random number for just random number. So we go here and we, for example, create user, and that's all. Here we create our end-to-end test. We call API endpoint. We call post, and we send the user. We have expect, and expect will throw you an error if something is bad. The problem with this kind of tests is that if something fails, you won't really see what, and you will have to debug it. Because you call endpoint, you don't have that immediate feedback as from unit tests. You cannot say, okay, so this fails because of something is undefined, or this fails for another reason. We'll have to debug it manually, but still, if it fails, you know that there is some issue with your application. And after it, we can call another route, and we can get that user and just check if everything is good. So that is. Also, here we have ability to create a few users, and we can do it like in batch. So we just reuse that function, And again, as I see in lots of my experience, is that we don't really want to reuse something in test. We want to maybe copy paste. They are more independent from each other and it tests. We just don't care about it. But yeah, we can reuse function, and I think it's a very good approach, because this way you can, I don't know, create 100 of users in a few minutes, not just copy paste some code. Also, in this test approach, when you have your end-to-end tests in the same repository, in the same language, you have full control of your database. You can easily, for example, clear it. You can work with your repositories and clear them. Also, you can use another powerful library called Nog, and you can just simulate another service. So if you don't really want to create some additional environment, or you don't have money for it, I don't know what else, you can just use Nog. And this way, Nog will automatically generate some responses for you. This is good as well. And so yeah. And let's go into the item. So item works in that way that we cannot create item without user. So we need some like created by property. And if we just pass random UID before, this test is expected to fail. So this test is expected to have 400 error, and that is, we are okay with it. We can go further and compare and check body if body has expected error, but it's okay, it just fails. Also, we have like successful test, and in this test, we can easily reuse this create user function from previous test. And I think here happens the magic, because this is test on itself. So basically, we are checking that user is okay. We are checking that it is registered. We are checking that we can get it. And after it, we work with newly created user. We can as well easily remove it. We can create those functions to remove, and that's all. We will be clean after all. Okay, and I think the best magic comes here in order. So for order, we need valid user ID and valid item ID. So as well, we can create anything here. And again, if we say that in orders, we will need to call some API endpoint. I don't know, maybe depending on quantity of the order, we will call slow API. Then we can have some metrics. We can easily have it just as bonus. We can check it. We can check if our slow API fails or not. So again, it's really good stuff to like have those functions, have those builders for test, and make your test like build it from other tests. So basically, as I said, every this function is test itself. So you're testing lots of stuff. And yeah, that's what we came up with. And let's speak about it a few minutes. They are really fast to implement. As you see, there was just a few lines of code, to be honest. Like, yeah, and that's all. So you need to post something, you need to check if it works, you expect some results, and you compare somebody. They are as easy to implement as unit tests. I don't really mocked anything in my example. Also, they are easily readable. You can read it from top to the bottom. You can understand those functions, and you can say, okay, create user. So we expect some user, etc. We can simulate scenarios without additional cost. So we can combine it, and we have like function create order that itself can call create user, that can call create item, and we can reuse it with some bigger flow. So it will be easier to write every next test. You will spend some time for configuration and for like developing those stuff, but after it, you can go easily. We can teach QA engineers to write them, and again, it's I think not much different from other frameworks that they use. So yeah, they can use it. We can have test coverage at no cost. So, for example, for this application, we can just add NIC, and that will do its work. If we run it, we will have test coverage. So it says that like 90% of our code is covered. I think it's not that useful number, but still you can have it anywhere. You can show it to your product manager if you need to achieve it really quickly. And yeah, you can use it. It's somehow relevant to how your application is covered. What else? You can start from end-to-end tests. And if you don't have time, you don't have to write those unit tests or integration tests. Maybe a few for some crucial functions, for some tricky functions, but that's all. You can finish with it. We can mix it with integration test. Again, it's not the best option. You don't really want it to do. But when you have unlimited time or nearly unlimited time, then you can do it. And your application will be much more you will be much more sure that your application will work after release, but you can mock something, yeah. And also about cones, it's not that popular architecture. As I said, I haven't seen it in any of my other projects. So maybe if somebody new is here in your project, you will have to explain him how it works and what should you do with it. And yeah, it's difficult to cover all edge cases because if your logic becomes so complex, I think it will be easier to write lower tests, unit tests, for example. So yeah, what else? What we can do? There are some methodology called property-based testing, and as you see, in this application we used Faker. This library just creates some, I don't know, it creates user for us, yeah. So this library just generates some name, but it's just one name. It's a single name. It may, with low percentage, catch some errors, but you're not sure about it. And also, when you write those tests, you think as a developer, you think, okay, here I have if statement, so probably I need to write tests that will go into this if and return something. Or maybe you see some meaningful tests. You just cover that user is able to register somehow with your most common flow. Maybe you don't cover those edge cases, but there is a framework, and I think it's a Java-based approach, and a framework called FastCheck. And it's based on property-based testing, I think. Yeah. So what it does, it generates those numbers, those stuff for us. So we can say, generate us two numbers, and yeah, it will do its work. So for example, here we have some pretty simple function, and we just divide two numbers. And we expect that the result is finite, and that's all we care about. And if I were writing test, I don't know math, for example, then I can do just, one test, and I could say something like, should divide? And here we will have some stuff like expects to equal, for example, 2, and that's all. It will be easier test. But we don't really cover 0 because we don't know about it. So we have a framework called FastCheck that will generate lots of inputs for us, and we can figure it. We will say, generate us 100,000 attempts. So generate us 100,000 random integers. And based on its structure, it can cover a lot. So it already knows about edge cases. It already knows about random negative numbers, about random positive numbers, and about, for example, zeros. So if we run it, we have error. And we have counterexample that 0 and 0 gives us the result that we don't really expect. So we can write maybe additional test. We can handle it. We can update our function. And yeah, that's how we can do. And if we take a look at it, it's not really difficult to do something. It's not really difficult to generate those. It's not really difficult to generate those random stuff. So if you're used to do it, you can just almost for free have those free counter examples. And yep, I think that's all from my side.
That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Not quite so fast. Not so fast, my friend. Okay, so as we promised, I think you have a question that you're going to ask to these very attentive listeners. Sasha says that the silence was so intense that it was actually loud while you were speaking. So, what is the question that you'd like for us to, or three of us, lucky contestants, to attempt to answer?
So, I was thinking about questions like not that long, not that much, and what is the main drawbacks of test-driven development? Maybe there is some pain you face during it. So what do you think?
Drum roll.
For me, it's probably that you should mock a lot if you not implement from totally scratch. Yeah, if you use a framework or something when we have a lot of dependencies and etc., it's really hard to manage in unit test all such dependencies. In some cases, for me, it's one of the biggest drawbacks. If you use functional programming, probably that's not be an issue, but yeah, for OP, it's definitely a problem.
Final answer? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for me it's just a waste of time because usually we work in a Scrum, so we don't use a waterfall at all, and we don't need all what you need to do before sprint starting. So in this case, we usually redo a lot of time. I mean, test, implementation, and so on. And usually, if you work in a startup, yeah, it doesn't make sense to write this type of test. Yeah.
Can you just rephrase or repeat the question one time before we get the third answer?
Yeah, so what is the main drawbacks of test-driven development?
I've never tried it, but if I'm going to, I mean, in this approach, I mean, if I haven't test any part of my code, then I'm going to eliminate it from the code base.
Okay.
So, I mean, either it's going to have a test for that or not.
Okay, I see.
You have your three answers?
Yep. So probably the answer that reflects the most to me is from you, because the same. I was working in startup, but that's really terrible. When you ask it to do some TDD, that doesn't work.
A waste of time.
It's kind of a waste of time.
It's the best answer that we can come up with today, really. Well, congratulations. Okay.